Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So PPE Medpro, the dodgy company accused of COVID fraud, which Michelle Mone is linked to, though she denied involvement at first, only to later admit she was lying, has lost its case against the government in court and must pay back £122 million to the public purse. So what was the case about? What has it taught us about the scandal? And what about the billions more we taxpayers are due to have returned? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So very quick recap, because I've covered PPE Medpro quite a bit over the last few years. During 2020, when the government realised we suddenly needed loads of PPE, instead of just ordering it from already approved suppliers like normal countries, the Tories saw an opportunity for profit. So they set up what became known as the VIP lane, whereby a spectacular number of people with close links to the Conservatives, but no experience in procuring medical equipment, suddenly got fast-tracked access to large government contracts paying out well above the odds. PPE Medpro was one of them. This company didn't exist before 2020. It was formed in May 2020. How on earth did it get fast-tracked access to delivering medical equipment 1 month after being formed, when the company had only just been set up and had no significant assets? Well, although she initially denied it, Michelle Mone, as Conservative peer in the House of Lords, had access to those running the VIP lane and put in a word for this company, which she initially denied having any direct involvement in, even though it was run by her husband. And it was her insistence as well. It's not like she just gave them a name and they went, OK, we'll look at it, and then gave them a contract. She had to keep pushing, because even within the government, this company looked weird. They had to keep pushing, but they did. Literally a few weeks later, got 2 huge contracts. Mone later had to admit, by the way, that she did have involvement after all, after denying it for so long. Indeed, the company, as I say, was set up by her husband. She recommended it to the ministers running the VIP lane on the same day it was incorporated. Absolutely blatant that it was set up specifically for these COVID contracts. The VIP lane, or high priority lane as it's more officially called, was described as unlawful by the High Court a while back. So it's not just that the whole scheme sounds dodgy, it was very much illegal. Now, there are 3 types of harm which resulted from this VIP lane. The first is it delayed the acquisition of essential PPE to frontline health and social care staff, because the Tories prioritised rewarding friends and donors over getting the equipment we needed. This has resulted in epic levels of long COVID, and now everyone is wondering why there are loads of people in their 50s and 60s no longer available for work. Second, it meant paying over the odds for equipment, not because prices naturally increased due to extra sudden demand, but beyond even that. It was because it was being used as a corrupt reward for friends and donors. Some Conservative beneficiaries bought houses on the profits. Third, some of the equipment was not fit for purpose. In other words, it's not what was even ordered. This is what PPE Medpro were chased for in one of the contracts. There's nothing the government can do now about the delays in acquiring PPE. There's nothing they can do about the high prices paid for equipment. That was very much within the government of the day. But if the equipment supply did not meet the specifications in the contract, that's different. And so even the Tories felt the need to go after PPE Medpro, though Labour are also going after others as well. So the news today is that PPE Medpro has been ordered to pay back the money it was given for one of those 2 huge contracts. One contract was deemed to be fulfilled, albeit at high price. Nothing to be done about that. But their contract for medical gowns, which were not properly packaged and therefore couldn't be said to be sterile, is void. The court has said they have to pay back the full £122 million for the failure to deliver the 25 million gowns as specified. But the government also wanted them to pay the millions of pounds paid in storing this unsuitable kit, but that was rejected by the court, so we're stuck with that. But that is another thing to consider. When equipment was delivered which was unsuitable, it not only meant frontline staff being denied life-saving equipment for longer, it had to be stored at great cost to the NHS, even though they knew they would never be able to use it. That's money that should be spent on our healthcare needs, not storing crap we can't use. It was over £8 million just for storing these Duff PPE Medpro gowns. Imagine what was spent storing and disposing of other useless equipment. And we won't ever get that back, it seems. In terms of where we go from here, I'd point out a few things. The first is that the case highlights again the cavalier way in which the Tories approached our urgent need for protective equipment during a clear national emergency. The focus has been very much on Michelle Mone and her husband, Doug Barrowman, but this goes beyond a couple of bad eggs. You know, you had a situation where PPE Medpro didn't exist, suddenly exists in May 2025. A month later, they get contracts worth hundreds of millions of pounds. They've got no experience procuring medical equipment. They have no assets to speak of. The company just literally formed. Right? They didn't con the government. The government allowed it. The VIP lane was designed specifically to allow this sort of corruption. In a way, it's annoying that there's so much attention just on those two, when they represent just a fraction of the amount of corruption which was going on at the time. The reason they've become such celebrities of the scandal is because they were too flashy. Like Mone and Barrowman constantly complain. I can understand part of their grievance that they seem to be singled out, and they are being singled out. But the solution to that is not let them off, it's to go after the others. But they were too flashy. Mone's need for self-publicity in particular, probably essential for her earlier business career. You know, you've got to be good at self-promotion. But it became her undoing with this scandal. And neither she nor Barrowman did themselves any favours with a TV interview where they attempted to win the public over, but just made themselves look even worse. I wonder if the Tory government under Sunak went after this contract because it was a good way of making it look like they were taking the issue seriously, whilst also distracting from the other Tories and Tory donors who benefited and are now also benefiting from the distraction Mone and Barrowman have created. For example, the documentation shows that PPE Medpro paid £46 million for the gowns, but they were given £122 million for them. So that means they made £76 million profit. That's a 62% profit. And this is what I mean about paying over the odds. Even when we got the equipment that we asked for, we paid massively over the odds because it was designed not as a way to get PPE. It was designed as a way to reward donors in return for eliciting future donations. You know, this would be disgusting. 62% profit. Disgusting enough if the gowns were supplied as ordered. And we won't be able to do anything, by the way. The government wouldn't be able to do anything then. But it's particularly despicable when Barrowman's company was paid more than enough money to ensure we got quality products and still make a healthy profit. This is just pure unadulterated greed. And it inevitably resulted in more cases of COVID, with some victims going on to develop long COVID, ruining their lives. It's actually disappointing that the public are not more outraged at this. I'm not into populism, like I keep saying. I don't like anyone making an enemy of a group in society, and I don't care who the group is. But some individuals deserve to attract the public's anger. A couple who created a company in order to line their pockets at the expense of the health of frontline health and social care workers are beneath contempt. But this is just a civil case, of course. The court has decided that this contract was not fulfilled and the money must be repaid. The individuals behind it will lose money, but they are very wealthy. However, there is a criminal investigation into PPE Medpro as well. It has been ongoing for over 4 years now. Now that this civil case is over, assuming there is no appeal allowed, will the criminal cases move more quickly? And if charges are eventually brought, will this provide the media spotlight needed to remind the public that when we most needed a government to step up in the national interest, they prioritised greed over the greater good? Because it's not the case that the VIP lane was a good idea where a couple of rogues abused it. The entire system was designed to be corrupt, and a lot of people profited, whilst NHS and care home staff did without essential protections against a deadly virus. This is literally the biggest scandal of my lifetime, in the UK at any rate, and not enough has been made of it in much of the media as they cover for their chums. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.